Hello. Right, so my talk is called Aunt Flo Has Left the Building. Clearly Aunt Flo is a euphemism for having a period, and left the building is clearly a euphemism for menopause. Actually, in my case, it should be Aunt Flo is leaving the building and she's having a massive tantrum on the way out, which is a euphemism for perimenopause, which is the bit you suffer for several years before your periods stop altogether. Now, the reason I'm doing this talk is because at 51, I know I don't look it, thank you very much, the average age at which women in the UK reach menopause, I'm about to be done with the whole bloody thing. I have been having a period since the age of 12, not continuously, obviously, because I would be very anaemic if that were the case, but basically on more or less a monthly basis. So those of you who are good at maths will know that 51 minus 12 is 39. So that is 39 years of having periods monthly. That's 12 periods a year. So that is 468 periods. Oh, and still going strong, ladies and gentlemen, which I'm sure you want to know. So anyway, I have had 3 pregnancies, so you can bring that figure down a bit, but let me tell you, being pregnant is no day at the beach either, but I'm going to save Pyle's acid reflux and perineal tearing for another talk, I feel. So, 468 periods in, and I feel very aware of how little I have shared this subject with my male friends. I feel it's still quite a taboo subject, and that's weird because over 50% of the human population has this cross to bear, and it's still a bit mysterious and in some cases a little bit scary for members of the opposite sex. I'm not claiming to speak for all women, and I'm not claiming to speak for all men, but I am talking about my experience and the experience of women that I do tend to chat with a lot about periods. So women, if you hear something that you relate to, I would like you to whoop, please. It's going to be a little interactive thing. Right, there's some penguins. Little curveball for you. Where's she going with penguins, you think? Well, my first period started on the 12th of April 1981. Now, I know that because we were on a trip to Edinburgh Zoo for my mother's birthday. So when I discovered that my first period started, I took my mum to one side and I awkwardly delivered the news, followed very quickly by, "Please don't tell Dad." And each of my daughters did exactly the same thing. Of course, I immediately told their father, and I'm sure my mother immediately told my father. But thus the tone is set for how we feel we can or cannot talk about periods with blokes. Oh! That's my dog. I know, isn't she lovely? So I have a husband and I have 3 daughters, and I have a dog who is also female and who has just recently been on heat. So, with all that estrogen in our house, you would think what is going on?
I don't know.
It doesn't like me and periods, clearly. You would think my husband would be totally up to speed with the reproductive workings of the lady friends. So I asked him, in the interest of researching this piece, I said, "Can you explain to me why and how women have periods?" And he said, "Yes, I can." I said, "Right, go on then." He said, "Well, you make eggs and then when you don't have a baby, you get rid of them." Well, actually, he was some of the way there, and to be fair, it is expecting a lot from a man who has spent the first 10 years of our relationship calling my monthly visitor my periodicals. Bless him. Anyway, so he is part of the way there, but I'm sure you lot are much better informed. But just in case, I thought I would help you by demystifying this subject. And as I've only got 15 minutes, that is going to be a lot of bodily fluids. So brace yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are thinking, that's a bit patronising, Kate. Of course I know about ladies' working parts. I'm modern. I have come to the Bavard bar. I read The Guardian. I'm a feminist. And good for you. And if you know your ovary from your fallopian tube and your vulva from your vagina, I'm very happy for you, but I haven't made this stuff up. There are genuine examples of men being very clueless when it comes to how the ladies roll. It's such a sensitive subject that Tim Bavard actually asked me if I thought Eastbourne was ready for it. And I said, yes, Tim, I think they are, so don't let me down, Eastbourne. So, I think we can all agree that scientists at NASA are pretty freaking clever, aren't they? They know their shit, they've put people up in space and all of that. So it may surprise you that when Sally Ride, an accomplished physicist and the first American woman in space, speaking incorrectly, obviously, all the time she was up there, was going up in the space shuttle for a week, the male engineers tasked with catering for her every need decided they would provide her with tampons in case she was menstruating during that week. So they said to Sally Ride about the tampons for the week, is 100 the right number? She told them that would not be the right number. Apparently, the male engineers then replied, we just wanted to be safe. They were clearly worried it was going to be like some sort of intergalactic bloodbath. And there would be womb juice spattered all over the walls of the shuttle. She then reassured them that half of that number would be just fine. That is a tampon, everybody. They come in lots of different shapes and sizes, and some have applicators, but that is my tampon of choice. So then in March this year, one man tried to calculate how many tampons are necessitated by the average period. So this plucky chap posted on the Pink News' Facebook page outlining how women might manage their periods more affordably with only his trusty man brain and the power of mathematics. To his credit, he was good at maths. He could do sums. It was just that all the facts that he used to base his maths on were incorrect. So, he said, the average period is 10 to 35 millilitres of blood. Each tampon holds 5 millilitres. So 7 tampons per cycle, ladies. He began. Let's be generous, he said, and say 10 for those ladies with an extra juicy uterine lining. 9 periods a year. 9? WTF? Equals 90 tampons max. So he's saying 90 tampons for an entire year of periods. He concluded by telling us the cost of a pack of tampons from Amazon and saying get 2 packs for lower postage and that'll do you for the whole year. So brilliant. Clearly he had no idea that different women have different heaviness of flow, that tampons come in different absorbencies, that each day of your period the flow can be different, necessitating different sizes of tampons, that you're recommended to change your tampon regularly to avoid toxic shock syndrome, and that you don't have 9 periods a year. You averagely have 12, because that's the number of months in a year and it's a monthly cycle, you complete idiot. The maths is way more complicated than he at Man HQ assumed. But what is astonishing is the confidence of a man to insert himself into a conversation about women's bodies armed with nothing but some made-uppy figures. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is male entitlement right there. Can I have a whoop, please? Thank you. FYI, because you're going to like this bit, I probably go through about a tampon every 2 hours on day 1 or 2 of my period, and then up to about 3 or 4 hours on the other days. Day 1 and 2 will be the super big absorbent motherfuckers, and then I'll ease down onto the regulars and the minis for lighter days. Overnight I can generally last on 1 or 2, but on really bad days I'll slap on a fanny pad in there too, just to be on the safe side. Belts and braces, ladies and gentlemen. On the last day I might not bother at all, I'll just wear a pair of black knickers and hope for the best. So his 7 tampons per cycle is out by about 30 tampons. What a silly boy he is. Right, moving on. I did try to find pictures of the ladies' reproductive organs online. I didn't like them, they were all a bit clinical, so I did my own drawing, which I think you'll agree is a very good biological illustration. Anyway, why would men know about periods when quite often they barely understand basic female anatomy? It is quite tricky, lads, because it is all tucked away, isn't it? Yours dangly bits are all on the outside, we get a clear view of it. Ours are tucked away. Again this year, one overconfident fellow argued incorrectly and copiously that a Guardian article headlined "Me and My Vulva," which showed photos of the external genitalia of 100 women, should actually have been called "Me and My Vagina," because he asserted it was actually about vaginas, which it clearly wasn't. It was about vulvas. The man, called Peter Bullen, responded to the article with a tweet saying, "The correct word is vagina." Women were only too keen to tell Bullen that vagina is the muscular tube that connects the vaginal opening to the cervix, as we can see here, whereas the vulva is the external genitalia, all that gubbins there that I have drawn. A more sensible man might have bowed out at that point, but not Paul Bullen. He got into a separate argument about mansplaining, which he mansplained, before asserting, "I am supporting widespread female usage, as in the vagina monologues. I am defending how actual people speak." Well, to be fair, he has got a point. People often refer to women's vaginas when they mean vulvas. We have lots of words for our bits, some of which are nicer than others, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm not going to share those with you. But I would contest that using the words vulva and vagina interchangeably isn't a harmless linguistic quirk. It's actually a technique for diminishing a woman's sexual agency. If we can't talk about our biology properly, we are going to be in trouble. So we should all put our big girl pants on and call our bits exactly what they are. Right, here we are. I'm rattling through it because there's a lot to get through. So this is the menstrual cycle. So my husband, who said you make eggs, you make your eggs. You don't make your eggs, you're born with all your eggs already in there, and they are in your ovaries, which we saw there. Can you see my lovely picture of ovaries that I drew so very nicely? And an egg, when you ovulate, is going to travel along your fallopian tube to be embedded in the uterus, where it can be fertilised by a sperm. You have come into the picture at this point, men, well done. But if it's not, the womb lining, which then thickens, which is what all the blood and gubbins is, will then come out as your period. So that is what menstruation is. Did we get that? I was actually horrified to realise I had the womb lining in my head in the wrong bit of my cycle. So I was like, wow, I got it wrong, so how can I expect you lovely men to get it right? Anyway, periods. They are something that looms over your girlhood. It's a double-edged sword. You really don't want them to stop, but you sort of do too. Because then you can be one of the girls who's saying stuff like, "Oh my God, I feel so bad because I got my period." period, or oh my god, can I borrow a fanny pad off you because my period has just started, or oh my god, can you check the back of my skirt because I think I might have leaked. Those are the sorts of things that girls do say to each other. And yet when it's there, the evidence, the blood stain in your pants for the first time, it's very weird and it's actually very shocking and it takes a bit of getting used to. And the first time you stick a sanitary towel in your pants, it honestly feels like you have got a king-size mattress down there and you feel like everyone knows it's there. And you have this odd awareness that this is a life sentence. You know this is about growing up and not being a child anymore. You know this is about being a woman. And you have been told by society from very early on that not everything about being a woman is great. In fact, much of it is not great. In the 70s, when I grew up, I am actually Tim's astrological twin. We are born on the same day of the same year, ladies and gentlemen. But that's an aside. In the 70s, when I grew up, much of being a woman was about your body, about how it should look, and what a commodity it is for men. Obviously, it's now 2019, and that's completely different. No, it isn't. Anyway, so this poor lady here, she's having her period, she's feeling a bit poorly, she's got all these horrible symptoms, she's clutching that hot water bottle, and that's what ladies look like when they're having their period. Actually, it isn't. That's what ladies look like when they're having their period. Now guys, I'd like you to remember that this goes on for at least 38 years. I'd like you to think about this. Every month from the age of 12 to the age of 51 at least, are you getting the enormity of this situation? Are you beginning to realise how lucky you are? Because 456 periods equals 456 times of feeling like shite. There are reasons why women wear jogging pants, old t-shirts and scrunchies when they're menstruating. They feel like shit. Sometimes people of both sexes allude to the fact that men would be rubbish if they bled out of the end of their knobs on a monthly basis. But as you can see, it's not just about that. It's about all the other symptoms associated with menstruation. And I would like a whoop whoop from anyone who has ever suffered any of those list of symptoms there. Well done, very brave ladies. There we are. And do you all look like that once a month? Yeah. And that's not even covering the mechanics of period management. Your period can last between 3 and 8 days, but it will usually last for about 5 days. The bleeding tends to be heaviest on the first 2 days. Now, who remembers the 28-day cycle? That can be 28 days, but it can be 35. It can vary. It randomly pops up here, there, and everywhere. So you need to always have stuff with you just in case. We're very clever, us ladies, so we tend to have a calendar. That's the nice Google version. That's mine. Can you see these numbers? So that's where I am on my cycle so that I can basically know when it's due to start, because it's gross and changing bloody pads and tampons is grim. It's bad enough in the privacy of your own home, but in public toilets it is even grimmer. And has anyone had to put a tampon in one of those little dispose of your tampon things and you get a waft of sort of perfumey, bloody, watery smell, and it's really, really gross. Some people now use moon cups. I haven't got to grips with those, and I can't imagine rinsing that out in a public toilet can be much fun either. There isn't a woman alive who hasn't crafted a sanitary towel out of toilet roll when they've been caught short, stuffed it in their knickers and then spent the rest of the evening feeling it sort of congealing, which is quite unpleasant. There isn't a woman alive who doesn't have a specific pair of period pants, which are the manky old pants that you wear when you've got your period. And there isn't a woman alive who has at one point or another just thrown a pair of pants away, because because they have got in such a state. I won't go into that. It's part of being a woman, is dealing with embarrassing mishaps, tying your top around your waist just in case, waking up in the morning to stain sheets. I once actually wrote a letter of apology to a hotel in upstate New York because I was so embarrassed. It looked like a Quentin Tarantino film that happened in there. I was actually going to take a picture of my current mattress to show you, but it was so shameful that I thought even and I have very little shame, clearly, thought I can't. Periods, they mess up birthdays, holidays, camping trips. They add additional stress to work, sitting in a meeting thinking, oh my God, I think I need to change my tampon. Travelling, you've got to plan your route around toilet stops. It affects what you wear, what you can't wear. I don't care what tampon adverts say. You don't wear white trousers or shorts when you're on your period, do you, ladies? No, you do not. There are girls in the UK as well as abroad who don't go to school because of period poverty. They can't afford any protection and they can't manage their periods, so they don't go to school, so they're missing out on education. There are other things like sports. You know, when you first have your period, you don't necessarily use tampons, so you don't want to go swimming. Exams. My daughter felt really crap during the first part of her GCSEs. Boys don't have to contend with any of this stuff. And that's before we even talk about PMS. So there we are. That is premenstrual syndrome. I always want to call it PMT, but it's changed, hasn't it? And that can begin around day 14 and last until 7 days after the start of menstruation. So that means you want to murder your partner for 21 days. Then you have a week off and then you start again. I did once attempt to kick the bathroom door in with my husband in there because he didn't answer me quickly enough. Well, you might think, well, Kate, it's only for 38 years. What's the big deal? But before we hit the menopause, where we are left a dried up husk of our former selves with dry vaginas, dry pubic hair on our heads, wiry whiskers on our chin and no sex drive, there's the run-up where our hormone levels are dropping off and our body is in the last mad hurrah of reproductive ability. This miserable bit is called perimenopause. Can I have a whoop from any perimenopausal women? Woohoo! Oh, thank you. And this phase still contains the grimness of periods, but with some additional shite for good measure. All that shite is added in. Isn't it fun? Perimenopause and menopause can also increase your cholesterol levels. So this is one reason why women in postmenopause are at even higher risk of heart disease. Yay! I am in perimenopause and I got a lot of that stuff going on, let me tell you. But my personal favourite is night sweats. Can I have a whoop for anyone who's ever had a night sweat? Oh my God. I'm not even too hot. I'm a normal temperature, but I am sweating like a stuck pig. I actually have to take my nightie off because it is so wet, and then you get really cold because you're lying there in a wet nightie, and then when you wake up in the morning you smell like a long distance trucker. It's disgusting, but actually it's only out of my right armpit. My left armpit doesn't smell. I don't even understand what that is about. I am so tired a lot of the time. I feel like I'm wading through treacle, and it often literally feels as if my brain just doesn't work at all. I do have times of paranoia and anxiety, which I know are hormonal. There is always an irrationality underlying this stuff, and there's one little sane brain cell going, oh, it's your hormones, and the rest of you's going, fuck off, I don't care. My friends have kept the Spanish holiday fan industry afloat with their attempts to manage hot flushes, and we are constantly on high alert for those wiry things that come out of your chin. They're just suddenly there. So guys, I do know that you have your stuff to deal with, and I am very happy to sit through a talk on the intimate workings of your prostates. I really am. But seriously, I would like you to try to empathise with what it is like to have female biology and still get through life month in, month out, managing all this shit and still being brilliant. I honestly don't think I can ask you to begin to imagine what having a period is like, but I would like you to respect what a bloody hardcore bunch of bitches women are. And I, for one, will be very glad when Aunt Flo has finally left the building and all I need is a vat of KY jelly and a really good shaver for me bushy beard.
I didn't want to say anything. I picked up on the vibe and I wasn't